Hello fellow Unreal Engine games developers. Today we're going to add player tags to our vehicles so that you can track where the players are on the map and see who they are. Let's get straight to it. Creating player tags above our vehicles is a fairly straightforward operation. The hardest part is going to be the usual issues of network replication and network synchronization. So those are the key factors we're going to talk about today when setting this up. To start off with, let's create a widget for the player name. So go into your UI folder and we'll create a new user interface widget blueprint, which I will call W player tag. Open it up, and in the canvas panel we'll create a size box, and we'll make this a fixed width and height, so a width of 200 pixels and a height of 50. And then within the size box we'll drag in a text element. And we'll give it, it'll be a variable. We'll give it a name of text player tag. And we'll just put in some placeholder text for the time being of player name. In terms of size, make it smallish, so 16. And I made it a green color. Okay, so that's our tag. The only thing we've got to do here is make sure that your size box is anchored to the center. Otherwise, when you add it in screen space, it'll disappear off to one side. So go into your anchors, doesn't really matter which one you choose, just do Control Shift so that this anchor point is in the center of the widget. Okay, so that's it for the widget. Compile and save. Leave it open because we'll obviously need to come back and populate this player name later on. But next thing we need to do is attach this widget to our vehicle. So go into your vehicle variety pack blueprints pickup and open up the BP pickup. Go to the viewport and we want to add the widget above the top of the roof. So in the add component section, add in a widget component, not widget interaction, just widget, and call it W player tag. And over here on the right hand side in the details, we'll set the widget class to our player tag and then drag it up a bit, and you can see that the player name is in the space we want it, but we don't want it in world space. If we leave it in world space, the player name will literally be part of the 3D scene, and we'll only see the player name when we are head on to that vehicle, and we won't see it when it's disappeared behind dunes. So what we're going to do is we're going to change this from world space to screen space. So don't worry about the fact it's disappeared here. If you look at the description, it says this widget is rendered in the screen and it's never occluded, and that means it won't disappear as the vehicle disappears behind dunes. It'll always be visible. So that is fine. We now have a widget which shows player name, and we can probably do our first test here to see what that widget looks like in the scene. So make sure you've got your desert map loaded up. Go into player mode. I'm going to do it for 4 players, and let's do it in a new editor window. Okay, so you can see here, I can see player name of my vehicle, and I can see 3 other player names. So if I drive towards where they are. They are above the vehicle. So this is going to give me a great indication of where the other players are on the map and which direction they're moving. So we can probably carry on now and implement the logic for populating this player name from the player name we've got in the player state. But just before we do that, I want to show you a problem that might have caught you out without you realizing it. If I drive around, let's have a look. So there's our 3 players here. If I drive away from them, just watch the tags here. So we've got 2 player name tags. Actually, we've got all 3 on the screen now. Let me just drive away. Oh, and one just disappeared, and then the second one disappeared, and the third one disappeared. Now this is a problem we've come across before, so if you cast your mind back to when we spawned the gates, you may remember what caused this issue. As I come towards them, the first one pops into existence, and the second one, and the third one. So let me come out of play mode. Hopefully you might have realized yourself what this problem is. If I go to the pickup and position myself at the top, we've got the concept of network relevancy. And this is at the moment set, it's not set to always relevant. The pickup truck is only going to be shown if it's within this net cull distance squared, which I think was about 5,000 units. So as soon as it goes out of 5,000 units, the pickup truck and any components associated with it will disappear until you come back into that region. Now, we probably didn't notice it before because the vehicles were so far away and behind dunes, we didn't notice it. But what we want to do is, we've only got 3 other players in the game, so let's make it always relevant, and that way we can always see other players wherever they are on the map, and in particular we'll always see the player tag. So compile and save, and let's quickly check that that's working okay. So there's my 3 players. Let's drive away. And the player tags staying visible no matter how far I get away in the map. So I'll always be able to see. So that's fixed that problem. Right, so first problem solved. Let's now, error there. Now this problem here, don't worry about it for now. We're going to be talking about creating the player tag in a minute and getting the network synchronization right. This problem is part of an issue that we're going to resolve in a future episode. If you remember, sometimes the scoreboard doesn't come up every time for players, and it's a very similar issue to what we're solving today in terms of getting network events synchronized. So we will fix this in the future problem, but it's very relevant to the sort of issues you face when doing synchronization. Okay, so we've got the player tag and we've got it above the pickup truck. Now what we want to do is we want to populate that player tag with the player name. So to start off with, I'm going to first of all think about what I'm going to do. So what I want to do is when I spawn the vehicle in the player controller on the server, I then want to tell the server pawn to update the player tag, and that server pawn then wants to tell all of the copies of itself to update the player tag. So with that in mind, the first thing we need to do is go to the player controller, open that up, and if we look at the section spawning vehicle at start of game, so this is on the server, we're spawning a vehicle, we're spawning a pickup truck, and after we've spawned it, that's where we would then want to tell the pickup truck to display the player name. So we're going to be calling an event on the server first of all of this pickup truck. So let's leave that open for now. Go back to the pickup truck event graph and we'll create a new event. Custom event. server set player tag. Runs on the server, make it reliable because we do want the player tag to show. And the server player tag wants to tell all of the copies of itself to set a player tag as well. So we want another event. And this is going to be a multicast, which we haven't used many of in the past. Multicast, so MC set player tag. And this is going to replicate and run on multicast, and again reliable. And so the server set player tag wants to call this multicast set player tag. So the player controller spawns the pickup truck, tells the server on the pickup truck to set the player tag, which says send that to all the copies of myself. So these are the MC set player tag. So in a 4-player game, there will be 4 copies, and this will run on here and set the player tag. So that's the general flow. Now we actually do need to set the player tag on the widget. So the first thing we need to do is get hold of the player name. And the way we do that is get the player state. And get player name. And if you remember, when we're using Steam, the player name, the Steam ID automatically gets put in the player name of player state. While we're testing in the editor here, it'll be an auto-generated player name, but it's fine for testing. When you publish it out, the game, and play it in Steam, this player name will be the Steam ID. So we've got the player name, and now what we want to do is we want to put it into the widget. So you would take the widget and you would get the widget, get user widget object, which returns the widget that's held in this container. We need to cast it to our player tag widget. And now we need an event on the player tag widget in order to set the player name. So let's go back to our player tag widget, go to the graph, and just get rid of all of these events at the moment. Let's create a new custom event called set player tag. We'll have a string as input, player tag, and we then want to take our text player tag widget, text. So when this event's called, we'll take this player tag passed in, it'll convert it from string to text and put it into the text on the widget. Okay, so let's go back to the pickup, and we got our player name here. We've cast the widget to the player tag, and now we can call this event set player tag. Connect all these things up, and we're connecting the player name here. Now I've done this in a way that it won't work, but I want to go through this because this is the way you'd probably do it first of all, and then scratch your head thinking why it's not working. So let's compile and save. Let's run this and see what happens. Okay, our first thing actually, before we even run it, come out of here, we haven't called this server set player tag, so nothing's going to happen at the moment. So we need to go back to our player controller, and after we spawn the pickup and possess it, we want to drag off here and call the server set player tag. So we didn't even call anything at the moment. Okay, so the we've now spawning the pickup, calling the server set player tag, which requests all the copies of the pickup trucks to get their name, get the widget object, and set the player tag. Okay, so let's give it a go. Compile and save everything. Go into play mode. Okay, and it's worked on some of these events. So if we look at the server up at the top here, I've got my player name, and I can see the other 3 player names there as well. You know, these are the generated player names I was talking about. So it worked on the server, and if you look at client 2, for example, it's half work. It's worked on my player tag, and it's worked on one of the other players. 2 of the others have still got the default values, and in fact client 3, which was the last one to spawn, is even worse. It's got got no tag above itself and no custom tags. So if I come out, we might have some errors here. Yeah, so if I come out, you see it says an error trying to read the property player state. So this is caused, and this is an issue that I want to talk about generally in terms of networks. It's caused by a problem known as a race condition. And a race condition is where, if we go back to the pickup part, a race condition is where 2 events are firing at different times, and the event that's you want to fire before the other one is happening after it. So if you think about this server set player tag, it's actually executing this multicast immediately, even though the players, the pickup copies are receiving that event may not even have been created yet. So it's assuming that the replicated versions it's sending to are already in existence, and they may not be, and that's what a race condition is. You need to make sure that the object you're sending it to is in existence, and this player state here hasn't probably been replicated yet either. So there's all sorts of issues here that we need to resolve. I mean, this is why you see a lot of people using delays if you know from earlier videos of mine, I'm not a fan of using delays because it really shows you're not in control of the event flow. There are usually ways of fixing it by using events and controlling the event flow yourself. So just to prove that it is a problem with timing, let's just put in a delay in for now, just to see if it cures the problem. So in this server set player tag, let's put in a delay of 2 seconds. Okay, so that delay will give time for the pickup copies to be replicated, and should give enough time for the player state to be replicated as well. This is not how we're going to finish this tutorial. We're going to do it properly, but I just want to see if this cures the problem. So let's compile and save, go into play mode. After a couple of seconds, okay. So it's cured the problem. So you can see even on client 3, which I'm on at the moment, I can now see all of the elements are created properly. But I'm just not a fan of using delays to do that. So how else can we resolve this problem? Well, our good old friend onRep notify is useful here, because onRep notify will wait until the copied pickup truck comes into existence before it then lets you know that the notified variable is there for your use. So let's these errors again. Let's get rid of the delay, and this time we want to use onRep notify. Now the problem we've got is the player name in the player state is not in our control, But we can resolve that by creating our own copy of that player name. So I'll show you what I mean. Let's disconnect this from here for the time being, and let us create another variable on the pickup itself. So we're going to call this player name. It's going to be a string. And what we're going to do now, we're not going to use multicast anymore. So get rid of the multicasts and change the multicast here to not replicated. And then what we're going to do now is on the server section, we're going to get the player name on the server. So we're not now waiting for the player name to be replicated. So that's good. We know the player name is going to be in there. And what we'll do is we'll take our player name here and we'll set player name on the pickup truck on the server. And now this player name, if we set this to replication rep notify, down a bit, what we can do is we can be notified when this player name is received by the copy. So actually we want to rename this now to client, set player tag, and we want to call this when the rep notify lets me know that this player name has been replicated to this client. So let's go to the onRep player name that was created. And when the event fires, we can call client set player tag, and this will then call this event here. And we know that when it calls it, it's in existence. So this is going to sort of cure one of our issues, but it's not going to cure everything. And I'll explain why in a second. So let's go into play mode. And what you'll notice is that we have a lot of widgets just saying player name or nothing. I'm not sure we'll even get any error messages here. Let's see if we do. No, we don't get any error messages. And the problem here is that the notify event fires as soon as the pickup copy comes into existence. But the problem with that is when a pickup copy comes into existence, it's still got to set up all of the subcomponents, including the player tag widget. And so the way we're going to get around this player tag widget not being in existence is we're going to create it at the time that we receive this event. And I'm calling this philosophy of creating it just-in-time widget creation, and it's something I'm going to be using in a lot of areas. And when we come to do the fix for the scoreboard in a later episode, I'll use that just-in-time widget creation to make sure that everything happens in the order we want it to. So what we're going to do now is we're going to get rid of this element here, and when we receive the player name on the client, first thing we're going to do is create a widget, and that widget is going to be type player tag. And then we need to attach it to the component of the truck. So drag this in here, type set widget. So we're going to take the widget we've just created and set it attached to the component. So now we know we've received the player name, we know we've created the widget attached to the player tag, and then the last thing we need to do is to set the player tag itself. And the player tag we've got in here, player name, because that was the one that was replicated, so we can drag that in here. So let's we need to set this widget as well. Okay. So basically, having created the widget, then I'm pulling it into the set player tag function and calling the player name. Right, let's give this a go. And that looks pretty good. Just check the other. So client 2, server, yeah, and let's just check the last one. Yeah, so all of the different clients have got the player name and they're in the right place. And the reason why it's working without delays now is because we completely controlled the flow, so none of the race conditions existed. So just to recap, remember this problem here with the score and scoreboard is to do with an issue that we'll resolve in a future episode, so don't worry about that for now. But just to recap, we started off in the player controller, we spawned the pickup truck and then told the pickup truck on the server to set the player tag. And then in the pickup truck on the server, we took the player name from the server player state, which we know exists, and we set a variable on the pickup truck which had a rep notify setting. And that rep notify then, if we look at that, called the client set player tag when it was replicated, fired this event. We don't need to put it on client because it's only executing on the client from the rep notify. And the only thing we had to do now is we had to make sure that the widget was in existence, because we know that the pickup truck was there, but we didn't know the widget was definitely there. So we created it ourselves. We attached it to the player, the widget component, and then we called the set player tag from our replicated variable. So this is a standard model we will use for making sure that at the start of games, notifications happen in the right fashion without the need for delay, without the need for a delay, I should say. So I hope you found today's session useful, and I'll see you in the next one. Look forward to seeing you there. Bye for now.